Welcome to Jurassic Park. No.
For today's episode, I will actually be focusing on Michael Crichton's novel, but we'll be using some images and scenes from the movie as well. This novel also uses iterations instead of chapters, so I will be referencing those as well. The 1990 novel opens with a helicopter on its way to a medical center in Costa Rica. A man named Ed Regis comes in with a young man who is injured and presents him to Dr. Carter and her helper, Manuel. Regis claims that the man was injured in a construction accident, as InGen is written across the helicopter's side. Despite the man's injuries, Regis does not want to go any further than the medical center. Dr. Carter, or Bobby as she is known in the novel, takes a look at the man. His injuries are not consistent with construction accidents, especially because there is a foamy substance seeping out of his wounds. The young man utters the word raptor, vomits, and falls over dead. He's had a pretty bad day. Her helper, Manuel, mentions a local superstition about ghosts from a nearby island kidnapping children. With all the strange happenings, Bobby looks up the word raptor in an English and Spanish dictionary. In Spanish, the word means abductor. In English, it means bird of prey. Meanwhile, a family named the Bowmans are on vacation in Costa Rica. They're driving their Land Rover in search of a beach where they could park and hang out for a bit. Mike's wife, Ellen, is hesitant to let Tina go off and play on her own for fear of snakes in the area. Mike, however, reassures her that everything will be fine, and they set up a sort of camp on the beach. Tina runs off in search of a three-toed sloth and hears a chirping sound coming from the trees. Thinking that it's a bird, she goes to investigate, but is surprised to find that a lizard comes out. It stands on 2 legs, unlike the other lizards that stand on 4, and being so unique, she takes it home as a pet where they live happily ever after. Just kidding, it violently attacks her, leaving small thumbprint-sized bites all over her body and that foamy substance again. Mike and Ellen hear her scream and come to her rescue, and soon after, they are at the doctor's office. Dr. Cruz, who is looking at her, can't really make heads or tails of her explanation. Since he's no lizard expert, he gets another person to help him, Dr. Gutierrez. Yes, there are a lot of doctors not named Grant in this novel. Dr. Gutierrez thinks that she was bitten by a basilisk lizard, which is very common in the area. The 2 doctors are also very skeptical of her based on her recollection and the fact that she's a young girl and all. But when she remarks about Dr. Cruz's change in clothing, he's more inclined to believe her, seeing that she is very observant. Gutierrez then goes to the beach where Tina was attacked, looking around for any signs of this mysterious lizard. He surmises that a new species of lizard that has been previously kept hidden in the forest is now coming forward due to deforestation. However, he ends up finding a monkey eating one of these mysterious lizards and sends it to, that's right, another doctor. Dr. Simpson is away, so Dr. Stone is taking a look at this body and determines that it is not infectious to humans. He actually puts Gutierrez's mind at ease by letting him know these are not infectious animals. Oh, and remember Bobby, the first doctor you met? One of the babies in her clinic is actually being eaten alive by these lizards, and the nurse, not wanting to get in trouble for fear of negligence, claims that the baby died of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome. Sudden infant death syndrome is a strange way to try and explain what happened, considering the baby was being eaten. Also, analysis of Tina's bites reveals that the foamy substance is actually a neurotoxin similar to a snake's. A tech with Dr. Stone calls the lizard a dinosaur, and even though he insists that it's a lizard, she says that it must be a dinosaur because her kids love dinosaurs and she would recognize one anywhere. Dr. Stone wants to wait to send the lizard body away again until Dr. Simpson arrives. Stay with me, all of this does come together in unraveling the mystery, I promise. In the second iteration, we meet Dr. Grant and his botanist friend, Ellie Sattler. They're out in Montana doing some digging in what used to be a small sea. A man from the EPA, Bob Morris, shows up to talk to them. The Hammond Foundation has been doing some pretty dodgy things lately, and being that Grant's team is largely funded by the Hammond Foundation, the EPA is very interested in talking to them. It turns out that the Hammond Foundation has been buying large amounts of amber, only interested in cold weather digs, and recently bought an island off of Costa Rica, which they are claiming is a preserve. All that coupled with the technology and computer systems InGen is buying to put on that island, and the EPA is concerned that there are some very irresponsible things being done on that island. Grant explains that he was once a consultant for the Hammond Foundation in discussing dinosaur eating habits. Morris leaves, while Grant and Sattler share a laugh, thinking, how could this crazy old man actually be a villain? Wink wink. They are then faxed a picture of the mystery lizard, and are 100% sure that it is a Procompsognathus, definitely a dinosaur. Hammond happens to call at that moment, inviting Grant and Sattler out to this island, and they are hesitant to go, but the wheels are greased when they are given $60,000 each. Meanwhile, InGen is actually getting a little skittish with all of the goings-on lately, so they send their lawyer Gennaro, and he and Malcolm, a mathematician. The group all meet on Hammond's plane, and everyone seems to have differing opinions of each other. Hammond seems like a kooky old man explaining some of the park, but not too much. Gennaro is suspicious of Hammond, and everyone is suspicious of Gennaro.
He's the blood-sucking lawyer.
Plans for the park that were sent to Sattler and Grant show several security measures all around it that are very unusual for a basic zoo. Malcolm is very learned in chaos theory and goes over his findings with the group. He then hits on Ellie, passes out his findings, and creates a very bleak picture for the park. This guy is not into small talk. The group lands once again and gets into a helicopter with Dennis Nedry. He's a very rude tech. Now they finally arrive at Jurassic Park. It's a beautiful island shrouded in fog and mystery. Perfect for genetically engineered dinos to roam. And here is where they meet Ed Regis and see some dinos. Gennaro's reaction upon seeing the Brontosaurus is thinking he's going to be rich. Grant, however, is suspicious of certain things, and he notes that they move too quickly for what he is used to. Sattler also notices a poisonous fern placed right next to a swimming pool that's supposed to be part of the hotel. She also notes that there are extra bars on the windows, something not noted in the plans. Before they head out to see the park, Hammond's grandkids arrive. Tim is a huge fan of Dr. Grant and dinosaurs in general. After exchanging some pleasantries and some opinions in each person's head of whether the children should be here or not, they all head to the lab. Dr. Wu shows them a baby velociraptor and explains how the missing pieces of DNA are being filled in with reptilian DNA. He also explains that the amber is where they're getting the DNA from the dinosaurs for any of the blood-sucking insects that were alive at that time. Apparently, all of the dinosaurs are genetically engineered to be female, so there's no outside reproduction, and the dinos are all dependent on lysine, which means if they get off the island, they will die within 12 hours without that nutrient. This is why Dr. Wu thinks it's impossible for a compy to have attacked children on a nearby island. A little later on, Wu goes and visits Hammond, wanting to recreate more of the dinos to be slower, where Hammond disagrees. Meanwhile, Malcolm is shown some compy info on the island. He notes that the compies are all in a healthy population, but that's a bad thing because of the controls put on the island itself. Well, the group go on a tour while the others watch from a main control room. They pass a few dinosaur pens, including the Dilophosaurus one, which was just determined to be poisonous. Nedry, the guy in control of all the computer systems on the island, shuts them down, steals embryos for Biosyn, a competitor of InGen, and attempts to get off the island with those embryos. However, we all know what happens next.
Stick, stupid!
That just leaves Arnold in control of all the computer systems. The tour is stopped, and that's when things get really fun. Regis is eaten alive, and Malcolm is severely injured when a T-Rex attacks. The game warden goes out and finds Malcolm, bringing him back to Sattler and another doctor to take care of him. Grant, however, is with the kids, dodging dinosaur after dinosaur on their way back to the visitor center. They find some dinosaur eggs, and realize, as Malcolm said,
life, finds a way.
The power is turned on, but then falters, forcing Arnold to go back and restart the generator. Raptors find him and kill him. While Grant attempts to restart the generator, Wu is killed while he is trying to distract the velociraptors. Tim locks a raptor in a freezer, narrowly escaping their attacks. He's the only one with any computer knowledge at this point out of the whole group, and he turns the system back on just as raptors are breaking in through the skylight. Unfortunately, Malcolm dies because of his injuries, and Hammond actually falls down a short ravine where he is killed by some smaller dinos. Tim tries to call the supply ship that had just left to let them know that some raptors are aboard. Finally, the Coast Guard arrives, rescue the remaining survivors, and blow up the island. While Grant is waiting to be released, a man comes up to him to let him know that some lizards have escaped onto a nearby island but are now lost in a jungle. First of all, I love the format of this book. Instead of chapters, there are iterations with different perspectives that show what's happening as the story progresses. Each iteration has a symbol at the very beginning that by the next iteration has gotten larger and larger, extrapolating out as the story goes on. It reflects the chaos theory that Malcolm had been talking about. I also talked about chaos theory in Terminator 1. Please check out that video when you have a minute. Bioengineering dinosaurs to roam around in our world is such a fascinating concept, especially to the dinosaur lovers out there. Crichton does a great job taking a childhood love and fascination and then turning it on its head into a survival horror story. The first half of the story is all about doctors, foreshadowing, technology, and setup for what's to come. In fact, as you read through the first half of the story, Crichton is very carefully laying out exactly what you're going to see in the future. You just don't know how violent and terrible it's going to get. The second half is completely focused on the dinosaurs, chaos theory, and death, demonstrating exactly how destructive these animals would be in our world today. Filling in missing DNA with other animals, miscalculating the amount of security they truly would need, and having most of the major characters, good or bad, die just shows exactly why we shouldn't have these animals here with us in the first place. I personally love dinosaurs. I always have and probably always will. So to see them come to the big screen was exciting for me at the time, and even to this day. I love how the movie tried to mostly stay true to the source material, unlike other examples where really it's more of an inspiration than a full retelling. While a few things were changed, and certain things came about in the second movie that were really supposed to be from the first book, most of it was really done true to the story itself. Humans versus nature is a theme in many stories, and my series is no exception. After the world ends in my story as we know it, nature is twisted and malformed. For example, Ormium heads are these massive storms that shoot down columns of energy that obliterate anything in its path. Electrum storms are exactly what they sound like, frying people and tech wherever they hit. These two things are just examples of environmental hazards created after humans create and then destroy each other with technology. Just as nature finds a way, so do humans. In a world as bleak as this, humans have to find a way to survive and even thrive as time goes on. The fact is, people are also resilient. Whether that be in underground dwellings, behind iron walls, or even aboard powerful nomadic ships, people find a way. Now in novel 2 of my story, Codelines and Bloodlines, you meet a powerful nomadic group called the Iron Pirates. I mentioned them once in the first novel, so you might have missed it because they were really just referred to very much in the background. However, in novel 2, they play a very prominent role in who lives and who dies. Their constant need for new raw materials to increase their fleet leads them to attack and kill anything in their path. Led by Captain Tungsten, these pirates are ruthless killers in search of more metal. Something Craig notes in his conversation with Casey and in his own observations as the story progresses is that the Iron Pirates are not aligned with anyone. He sees an opportunity to increase his own people's chances by meeting with this Captain Tungsten. However, things take a deadly turn when Casey makes a decision that puts his and everyone else's lives in jeopardy. Read about what happens in my newest novel, Codelines and Bloodlines. Now, which dinosaur is your favorite, either in this story or in general? Mine is the Ankylosaurus, basically a huge armored tank with a club for a tail. I would have loved to see it go against a T-Rex in this story. Alas, I will never be able to see that. Dr. Grant better get in that jungle and find those missing dinos before it's too late.